Yep. Hey there, we are back. NBA DFS, it drops tomorrow. We're shooting this video today so we can get this out early and you can have the next 24 hours to just think about this two game. Why do they do 2 games? Why 2 games only? What a dumb way to, like, MLB does opening day and nothing's wrong with that. Like, are they afraid that people won't give a shit if it's more than 2 games or something?
I don't know, man. Take it up with Adam Silver. I don't make the schedule over here. I'm just one guy.
You know what? Maybe I will. The schedule, for a lot of reasons, is wrong. Anyways, let's not get off course. Point is, we are here, DFS Build, to break down the NBA DFS slate. First one of the season. It is only 2 games, so that is a bummer, but it's back, and we can win money, and that is not a bummer. And I think we did okay last year, and we're going to try to keep it going, too. We do have an NFL DFS video for Monday Night Football. That can be found at the end of this video, and also we'll get something out for Thursday night and for the main slate for Week 8. But the best we can, we're going to try to do these for NBA every single day to help you win money. And if we do help you out in any way, please like the video. That helps us out a lot. And also subscribe to the channel. That also helps us out a lot. All right, let's dive into it. We're going to go position by position. Starting at point guard, Jalen Brunson leads the way with a 44-point fantasy projection. No other point guard is remotely close. In fact, no other quarterback has a better projection than 30.
Quarterback?
I say quarterback? Gosh, dang it. Point guard. Hey, you know what? They're the quarterback of the
court. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So I didn't fuck up. Okay. So Brunson obviously at 8.7K looks like a smash play. We do have to consider a couple things, though. Number one, Boston Celtics on the road. Boston wins at home all the time, 37-4 at home last year, and they are a good defensive team. And also there are other studs worth paying up for, and point guard after Brunson ain't great. So what are your thoughts on Brunson? He's coming in at 37% ownership.
Yeah, I think Brunson is the best play on the slate at any position. I think he's going to be my number 1 flag plant no matter what. They brought in Towns, but he's essentially replacing Randall. I think that's kind of a like-for-like swap from a usage standpoint. I don't think Brunson's really going to be affected that much. Obviously, he was carrying them offensively down the stretch last year with Randall out with an injury, but I don't think the addition of Towns is really going to hurt him that much. He's 8,700. I think he's underpriced. Last year, he was kind of pushing 10K when he was streaking down the stretch. I just think he's a terrific play. The matchup sucks, but on a 2-game slate, you can't get too wrapped up in a matchup, I don't think. The game has a 5.5 point spread, so, you know, it's not unreasonable to think Boston could blow them out, but I don't really expect that to happen. I just love Brunson. I think he's the best play. I think you should play him everywhere. And after that, I'm really going cheap at point guard. I'm not really messing a ton in the 6K range, but what are your thoughts with these secondary options there?
Well, first of all, I'm going to go against you immediately because I think Anthony Edwards is an amazing GPP pivot off of Brunson on this slate. I think, first of all, the whole cat thing could be a bigger deal than you might think. Okay, so he could come in and take a lot of usage away from Brunson. The matchup on the road at Boston is not good. So I think if he's going to be almost 40% owned, no doubt about it, 8.7K, this is a value. This is a discount for Brunson. You're right about that. And as far as usage and upside goes, he's a good play. But if he's going to be almost 40% owned, I personally, my flag plant is I'm pivoting to Anthony Edwards. He's my favorite play of the slate. He's only $200 more, and he's coming at like 10% ownership on a 2-game slate in a way better spot against the Lakers. So that's where I'm at. That said, Brunson is a fine play.
You could simply play them both, I think.
Yeah, for sure. You can. I don't think I'm going to because there's other guys I want to get to, and I think I'm going to stack the Lakers-Wolves game personally. But yeah, you can, and there's nothing wrong with it. Brunson looks good. As for point guard, though, there's a lot of really nice guys down here in the mid-range. Derek White, 6.3K is okay. Don't have a problem with him, but my favorite one is probably going to be D'Lo at 6.2K. He has the second best projection or third best projection at the position. You can also look at Austin Reeves too, who can be used as shooting guard. I don't know. I don't really want to go with Drew Holiday at 5.8. I think he's fine because he's going to be out there and getting a bunch of burn. And I swear every time I tell people not to play Drew Holiday, he just careers. So maybe play Drew Holiday. But I'm not super interested in Drew Holiday. I think Derek White is okay. And I would probably look to the Lakers guys with a slight lean towards D'Lo. If you want to talk about, extra value, I mean, Mike Conley at 5.5, he's just okay. There's no ceiling there. I don't really want to do that. Dante DiVincenzo off the bench now in Minnesota. I don't know what to expect there. I think for sheer value, he's fine at 5.1K. But is he safe? No. And if you want to go a little bit deeper, I think we can look at Peyton Pritchard and Miles McBride. McBride feels like the best punt on the slate, 3.6K. Again, we don't know what his role is really going to be, but because we know Tibbs likes to run his starters into the ground. But if he's going to get 20 or so minutes off the bench, I think 3.6K is probably the best value of the slate.
Yeah, I'm going pretty hard under the field on Russell, White, Holiday, and Reeves. They're all kind of the same guy. They're all fine plays. I don't think you're wrong to play them. But in terms of projected ownership, I think they're all going a little bit over-owned. I'm just more likely to play Brunson and then punt if I'm playing another point guard with Pritchard would be the first one on my list. I think Conley's a pretty sneaky good play, a little cheaper than that 6K range. I think the Lakers defense on the perimeter is going to be a horror show. So I think Conley and Anthony Edwards, it's a really good spot for them both. McBride, fine. I'm worried he's going to be insanely chalky, though. Like a 50% on Miles McBride off the bench sounds pretty horrifying to me.
That's true.
I know he's super cheap, though. He's 3.6. He's going to have a role, but there are a lot of ways that can go wrong. That seems like chalk you can maybe be over the field on.
Okay, but you mentioned Pritchard. I like Pritchard. He's a good player. He'd be a starter on a lot of other teams, probably, at least arguably. But he's not a starter on this team, and he's carrying 40% ownership. Like, you can spend $1,000 less on McBride. Like, chalk be damned, they're both going to be chalky. I'd rather play McBride as opposed to Pritchard, I think, on this slate.
I think it's okay. McBride is viable because of the minutes, but the ownership is what scares me off of him. I think you can play Gabe Vincent in the same range. He's going to be a fraction of the ownership. The minutes aren't as high for him, but we don't really know what his role is going to be. The Lakers have a new coach. There's no telling what Redick's going to do. D'Angelo Russell is a guy that's been benched very often over the years. I don't see any reason to believe that could not happen this time. And Gabe Vincent is not going to be popular at all. So if you're playing a large field tournament and Miles McBride is owned by half the field, I don't hate pivoting to Gabe Vincent and just hoping he outscores him. It's not an unreasonable thing to think.
No, not unreasonable, but certainly risky. We have no idea what Gabe Vincent's role is going to be. I can't imagine D'Lo gets benched in the first game of the year. I think Redick will probably let him ride it out and just see what happens.
Even by the way, 16 minutes of Gabe Vincent, I think it's possible he could outscore Miles McBride, who is not a good point per minute guy anyway. So that's just the kind of pivot, straight line pivot, I think is fine in a large field tournament.
Yeah, I don't have a major problem with it. If I'm comparing McBride against Pritchard, I think I would just look at McBride because they're both really owned, and you're saving $1,000. You can also pair them. I just think that's taking on quite a bit of risk because the odds are reasonably decent that one of those guys is going to flatline and sink you. So if I'm going to take on that risk, I would rather just take it on with the cheaper guy. Moving on to, is there anybody else at point guard that you need to highlight?
I think you can, depending on how many lineups you're playing. You can play Nah, you can play Cameron Payne or DiVincenzo, but secondary large field type of plays at the very best.
All right, moving on to shooting guard we go. My boy Anthony Edwards leads the way with the best projection, only 3 points fewer than Jalen Brunson. I think he's an elite pivot off of Jalen, but like you said, you can pair them if you'd like. Another guy who's discounted is Jaylen Brown at 8.2K. He's carrying some ownership, but it's under 25% at the moment, so that does not look bad at all as far as a rock-solid play that has a bit of a ceiling. And Jason Tatum's going to be chalky, so Jaylen Brown could be a really nice leverage on pretty expensive Tatum. I don't want any part of Mikal Bridges. That his shot is messed up right now. I don't want to mess with him at almost 7K in a new role on a new team. Obviously, some of these guys that we already discussed are in play at shooting guard as well. Derek White, Austin Reeves, DiVincenzo, Pritchard. All these guys are useful at 4 spots on the board. So I don't know. I love Ant. I love Ant at shooting guard, and I think Jaylen Brown is also a really appealing play at that price point.
Yeah, both are great plays. This position is really brutal once you get past the top two. That's why the punts like Pritchard and McBride and Vincent and DiVincenzo are playable.
Yeah.
I don't think you're crazy to play Dalton Connect either. the Lakers drafted him. He's kind of a ready to play now type of guy. He's like 23 already or something like that, which is why he fell in the draft. But he is a good prospect. The minutes are not safe. There's no telling how much he'll play. He's going to be off the bench as a rookie in his first ever game. It can completely fail, but it's hard to get different on a 2-game slate in NBA DFS. So I don't mind. It's the same thing as Gabe Vincent. I don't mind taking a shot on Dalton Connect, especially considering he might be a pretty good player. I don't expect him to be a per minute dynamo since he's kind of a shooter type, 3 and D wing maybe, but it's okay on this slate. Otherwise, I love the Edwards call. He's too cheap at 8,800. Like I said, the Lakers defense on the perimeter is going to be a shit show. He should do whatever he wants. Randall, like I said earlier, I think Randall and Towns are kind of the same from a usage standpoint. Edwards is still going to post a 30% usage rate to lead the team. Great play. The ownership is just simply too low. Like on a slate with plenty of studs, it's wild to see one of them coming in under 10% as of now, and I just think you can into that and get over the field on him.
Yeah, I think same thing to a lesser degree with Jaylen Brown. I mean, everybody's flocking towards Tatum at the moment, and if that's going to be the case, I think Jaylen Brown is pretty appealing. The only issue with Jaylen Brown is that there are guys I do prefer a little bit more that are a little bit more expensive, and obviously in that same price range, I think you would play Jalen Brunson over Jaylen Brown too. So I think he's a solid leverage play, solid value at 8.2K, but I don't think Jaylen Brown is necessarily a priority for me. And like you said, these other guys, you can slide them in at shooting guard, or utility as well. Pritchard, Miles McBride, and then I still am totally fine with Reeves, Derek White as well. Oh, yeah, and by the way, Connect, that's a good call, 3.9K. We just don't know what his role is going to be. So definitely a dicey option, and he's a rookie who probably is just going to shoot threes, and that might be it. But it is a 2-game slate. Moving on to small forward, obviously Jason Tatum leads the way as the chalkiest play with 51% ownership on the board, because at 9K he's too cheap. Like it's too cheap for Jason Tatum. The pricing is very odd. So I understand the chalkiness. The thing is, LeBron James is comparable for sure, and he has a ceiling and a pretty good floor, and he's like not even remotely close to the ownership as Tatum. So LeBron looks like a pretty darn good pivot in tournaments off of Tatum, but they both look awesome. They both coming in with over 46-point fantasy projection. I already mentioned Jaylen Brown at small forward. He's eligible there too. I have no interest in Bridges. So let me hear your thoughts on those top dudes, and then what you're liking as far as value here.
Yeah, I do like the LeBron call quite a bit. Also under 9K. No one's really expensive on this slate. I think Davis is the most expensive player at 9.4. So salary is not a huge consideration, but it is a bit cheap for LeBron. Matchup is not great. Obviously, Minnesota is pretty good defensively, especially on the wings. I assume he's going to deal with Jaden McDaniels in this game, but it is what it is. He's still LeBron. He's still good, even at the age of 39 or whatever he is. So I think he's a great play. I'm not super psyched about Tatum. I think I would just rather play Edwards in a better matchup for 200 less at shooting guard.
Yeah.
So if Tatum's going to be mega chalk, I don't mind coming in under that. I think the chalkiest player on the slate, it appears, is going to be Josh Hart. I saw him coming in with
I didn't even see
77% projected ownership.
Heck? I did not see that. Good call. 77? What?
He's 5'6", so he's cheap. We know the minutes are always there for him. I don't know if he's starting for sure. We'll see what happens there. I don't know.
I think I'm going to need him to start at 77% ownership. If that's
I think
the case.
you just don't play him if he's 77% owned.
Right.
I know it's a 2-game slate and it's Josh Hart, but he's like a low usage guy. The floor is generally okay with him because he does rebound and do other things while he's out there, but that ownership is just out of control. And I think that's a very obvious place to get different from the field if he's going to be owned by 80% of the people in your contest. So they're on a lot of direct pivots. I think you're kind of just doing a different build if you fade Hart, because 5'6", he's kind of in his own range. I guess Anunoby would be a pivot at 5'3", McDaniels. I do think Rui Hachimura is interesting, assuming he starts at the 4, 5K flat. Should play around 30 minutes, we think. Again, they have a new coach, so we can't necessarily expect the same rotation we saw last year, but Rui, even if he's going to be somewhat popular too, just not as chalky as Hart. So I think he'd be my favorite pivot away from Hart.
Yeah, I like the OG call too. OG is all about minutes, right? So he's not really the best DFS performer out there, but it's just an ownership play. He's going to be a fraction of the ownership Hart is carrying. The thing that stinks is Hart is a good price, and Hart is a good DFS player, really good per minute guy. Even if he's not connecting on his shots, he's just getting blocks and steals and rebounds like crazy. So it's tough to fade him, but at that ownership, I'm 100% with you. That's egregious ownership. It will be interesting to see how the ownership does shift between now and tomorrow night because, like we're saying here, like another one we'll talk about, LeBron is a good play, but only $500 more. Brow is less owned. Like I want Brow for sure. These feel like easy setup calls for me on this slate. Like all these guys are pretty similar, right? If the ownership is going to be so egregious, I'm just going to be like, oh, well, that's stupid. And then I'm going to go the other way. Like they're all pretty close. So yeah, I'm going to play the, 7% less owned Brow, and I'm not going to play fucking 77% owned Josh Hart. Like it feels like easy calls. So, and I love the Rui call. I would like him to start, but I think I think he's. Oh, yeah, I know, but I would like him to. But even though he's not, I think he looks pretty good as far as there's not like a ton of amazing value. So at 5K, I think he's definitely in play.
I think my favorite value is actually Hauser at 4-4. He's essentially Dalton Connect. He's just going to be out there shooting, but he's at least a good shooter. The matchup's not great, but he's cheap. He's going to be out there, we know, in some regard. So on a slate without a lot of comfortable value, especially if he's going to be lower owned than Hart, obviously he will be. I think Sam Hauser is a pretty good play.
Yeah, it just all comes down to, is he going to hit his shots? I mean, he is projecting for 23 minutes. So at 4.4K, that's enough to get my interest on a 2-game slate for sure. On a bigger slate, I wouldn't really go there, but on this slate, you absolutely can. All right, let's move over to power forward, where a lot of these guys we already touched on are viable. We have not been able to touch on Julius Randle, though. Obviously, he's in a new city, new role. The price is good as far as like who Randle has been, but I don't have any interest personally. And I think the only other guys that really stand out that we should talk about are going to be Al Horford at 5.2 and Naz Reid at 4.9. How are you feeling that power forward?
Yeah, I kind of like all of those guys. I think Randle at 8K is pretty good against the Lakers. Matchup's not great, like AD in there, patrolling the paint and all that. Randle, we know, can be wildly inefficient as well, but still a good per minute guy historically. Not sure how popular he's going to be. So if he's a little bit under-owned, I think he's a pretty good way to spend some salary at 8K. Hauser, you can play here. Love him quite a bit. One punt I think you can consider is Jericho Sims. Precious Achua is out. The Knicks really have no depth at all right now. So it's like Towns at center, and then it's going to have to be Sims. And I think they could play alongside each other a little bit. There's a pretty easy path to Sims beating his minutes projection, and he's only 3,300. He's historically a great per minute guy, even though he's a center, but you really aren't going to find many guys in that price range on this slate that could play. So I think Sims as a power forward punt is pretty appealing, especially since center has opportunity cost and power forward is kind of a weaker position overall.
Yeah, I think the other thing is too that I don't know if I want to take too many chances. Like I don't know if I want to take too many punts, just because like on a bigger slate we can do that because usually the value is going to be a little bit more stable, at least in theory. Like you'll have like a random 3K flat guy who's walking into like Dennis Schroeder's role or something, or D'Lo is out, and then what's his name? The guy Gabe Vincent is coming at 3.8K and is going to play 35 plus minutes, right? On this slate, though, we're going to take chances on guys who we don't even know if they're going to play at all. Like Dalton Connect is he's a good rookie, but is Redick even going to play him in the first game of the year? I don't know that for sure. I would think he would, but he could not play him. It could be a coach DNP, or he could come in and play 10 minutes and hit 0 shots, right? So like, I don't want to take those kind of chances this early, but I definitely understand the logic. The Knicks are very, very shorthanded down low. So if Cat got into foul trouble or what have you, that could end up working out. I think I'm going to limit my dives though the best I can, which does have me looking at guys like Rui and OG and Anunoby, which I don't know. Is that much safer? I don't know. All right, let's look at center. Anthony Davis leads the way with one of the best projections of the slate. Is he the highest projecting? Yeah, he is, which is crazy that his ownership is only 26% right now. So right now, I love the idea of pairing him with Anthony Edwards. I think both of these guys are just way under-owned. I will be interested to see if the ownership is still there when we update it tomorrow. But as it stands, the brow looks awesome. We talked about Julius Randle. The price is good. Projection is not. The nice thing about Julius Randle is he's not going to be owned. So he has a good price. He does have a good role, and he won't be owned. That's all those things are good. Cat is interesting. His ownership is crazy because of his price, but it's not a good matchup, and he needs to kind of find his footing in a new situation where we know Jalen Brunson is going to be the usage guy for the most part. So I love the prices on guys like Julius and Cat. I feel like Cat is like a big-time trap at almost 50% ownership, and then you have Rudy Gobert coming at 53% ownership. The price is really good there too, but obviously not the best matchup there either. So how are you feeling about these centers like paying up big money?
I think AD for sure is the best play by a mile at center. Super pricey, but doesn't seem like he's going to be over-owned at all. It seems like he might be under-owned. So happy to take advantage of that. The matchup against Gobert on paper is not great, but he has fared perfectly fine against him. I think last year he averaged like 23 and 13 with 5 stocks or something like that against Minnesota.
58.8 fantasy points per game against Rudy. So
yeah, not worried about that.
No.
I'll be under on Gobert and Towns just because they're going to be popular. You can play Sims here. You can play Randall here. Jackson Hayes, another punt in the same vein as Sims with Christian Wood out. Jackson Hayes, in theory, is going to be the backup to AD. So don't love it, but it is what it is. And then I think Naz Reid is still interesting. He's going to play a big role off the bench. Randall's going to start, we assume, but how many times last year did we see Naz come in off the bench and completely break a slate? Like, we know what he can do. Elite per minute guy. I think he's a pretty good tournament play as well.
Yeah, I love Naz Reid on this slate. His ownership is coming around 30%, which seems just about right. A little bit low, I could say. Here's the thing. There was like a report that the Timberwolves weren't even like fully sure that Julius Randle would start, which just tells me they really like Naz Reid, right? Because Naz Reid is just a hyper-efficient guy. He does a little bit of everything out there. In 4 games against the Lakers last year, he averaged 40 fantasy points. So, I mean, the guy just gets it done. We know he's going to play at least 20 to 25 minutes off the bench. And if he gets more, then he is an absolute smash at 4.9. What is his per minute average? I know it's well over 1.
Let's see. Yeah, I don't have it in front of me.
Yeah, we know it's crazy. I bet you it's like 1.47 or something really nice. So, point is, well, it probably is. Okay, maybe that's a little bit egregious of a guess, but my point is he is
1.07 last year.
Okay, still anything over 1 is very good. So I'll take that. And at 4.9K, I like that a lot. Oh yeah, I don't know. What were your thoughts on Al Horford? Are you paying for old geriatric 5.2K Horfy?
I think Horford's okay. Essentially the same play as Naz Reid. We'll see where the ownership goes, but he's fine. The minutes are never high for him, but he's okay enough per minute still. Despite you thinking he had retired over the summer, he is still playing.
You probably should have.
I think you can also punt with Cornet in a large field tournament in the event the game blows out. Cornet, another hyper efficient per minute guy, cheap. No one's going to play him.
Every DFS sport has its main issue. You got MLB with superstars going 0-for-5. You got pitchers getting negative points. In the NFL, you have game flow and like game script, like completely ruining your guys. And in the NBA, it's blowouts. So always something to look up for. Yeah, I really hadn't been. You always say we shouldn't play for the blowout, and it is true. But on a 2-game slate, you definitely can entertain it because taking these dives for some of these value guys does open things up considerably. That said, I'm going to try to keep it pretty even and stick with plays I just feel really good about. And at center, I think we kind of touched on everybody. This is where I'm at right now to sign us off. Okay, I'm not fully decided. But this is my lineup as things stand. Miles McBride, because I think he's the best punt of the slate. I think he's going to get 20, 25 minutes off the bench, and that's 3.6K. That's more than enough. Ant Edwards, ownership's too low. Brow on the other side, ownership's too low. I got OG, who I don't feel great about, but I think it's a really good pivot against the crazy owned Josh Hart. Rui, just a good value at 5K. Nas, I do think I will end up playing Pritchard, just the way the lineup is shaking out. And the only real decision point for me is going to be Julius Randle versus Jaylen Brown. And because Jason Tatum is so owned, I think Jaylen Brown might be the good caller. But Julius Randle to end things off at like 6% ownership, that is very interesting for sure. I just don't think we have to do that if this is the kind of lineup we're doing, because Edwards is already doing that for us, right? So to cap things off, do you have any big flag plants?
I think Brunson and AD would be my primary stands. I think I will happily come in under on McBride and Hart, play guys like Vincent and Sam Hauser instead. And then the Anthony Edwards call, I think, is fantastic because I don't see why he should be single-digit owned on a 2-gamer.
No, and I wouldn't be surprised if that shifts and like he's more like 25 or something by tomorrow. That seems more realistic, right? So I don't know if we're going to get away with 10% on Anthony Edwards, but I still like him to close that game out, and pairing him with the Brow just makes a lot of sense. All right, that is going to do it for us. A lot to talk about on a 2-game slate, apparently running for almost a half hour, but hey, the NBA is back. I'm excited. I know you are too. And hopefully we could help you guys win some money. If we do help you in any way, please give this video a like and also subscribe to the channel. Enjoy the first game, the first set of games back, but don't go too crazy. It is a 2-gamer, and if things don't go perfectly, it's going to go poorly in a hurry. All right, thanks for watching, and good luck.